everybody celebrates. And that's a state that we need, and we must work hard for it. And it begins with changing our attitudes. I think it is inherent in human nature, those trying to find a way of claiming you are better than somebody. And that's how we end up stigmatizing others. So I think it's our national commitment to stamp out stigma, to make sure there's no more shaming people we think have HIV, families of people living with HIV, children of people living with HIV. And unfortunately, last year, we did a demographic health survey. One of those surveys we do across the country to find out the behaviors of people. We discovered that a significant number of people are still stigmatizing. 16% of all adult women say their child should not go into the same classroom with the children who have been born with HIV, which is still taking us backward, because we have started with children born with HIV for so long that we should have come. We see that a significant number, 20% of all adults, say they will not buy a vegetable from a shop of somebody they know or they think they have HIV. So stigma is still grounded in our communities, in our way of life. If we don't root out stigma, we shall not manage to attain our goal. It's one of the key things that is standing in our way. We have enough condoms, we have enough drugs to totally deliver the promise of ending AIDS as a public health by 2030.
Interesting indeed. The stigma remains one of the big problems and challenges when it comes to AIDS and HIV/AIDS. Our dear listener, to be part of us, you can reach to us on 776-5106 or send your messages on 0701 24 26 47. Rest assured that your concerns were going to be addressed in this program, but I'll be picking your calls in our second part of our discussion. Interesting, Salome, stigma indeed remains a very big challenge, but I would love also to know the other challenges that have been faced by people that live with HIV and AIDS.
Thank you so much. Certainly there are so many other challenges that are faced by people living with HIV and AIDS, but within still the line of stigma is denial of jobs. Education opportunities, which
someone is denied an job opportunity because he's
HIV positive. I'll give you an example.
How do they know?
I'll give you an example. For instance, we have opportunities for young people, and we see the young people very much interested in going to work abroad. Every time you're at the airport, you see very many young girls are going to work abroad. Unfortunately, those that are living with HIV have the energy, the interest, the ability, the requisite documents, are not able to participate in this kind of labor force. They are screened and they are not given jobs. So that is a challenge. The other challenge we see is stigma and discrimination from health workers, which of course makes it very difficult for colleagues to access care. You wouldn't want to be an MP, to be a minister, then you access services somewhere, and then before you know it, the whole village knows and the whole workplace knows. So there are still challenges such as stigma from the health workers. We have challenges in relation to medicines, supplies and commodities. On and off, you realize people are talking about there's a stock out of ARVs, there's a stock out of testing kits, and this affect prevention. We also know that it affects actually what we have succeeded most in, that is prevention of mother to child. Once there are no ARVs and mothers are not able to access those services, that becomes a challenge. Challenges in education, I think you also see at times scholarships where they actually check people for HIV. At times this by their salient, their organization that will send you for a medical checkup, but the actual check they are looking for mostly is HIV. We also see a challenge in leadership opportunities. An example is, you remember during the campaigns for MPs, we had other MPs lashing at others, you're positive, trying to discredit them and really affecting affecting the population and their ability to be elected. So we see denial of people to get jobs and other opportunities. We see poor service delivery that of course affects positive living. The labor force, still we believe that positives can contribute greatly there, but there is a challenge. And to enable mothers to have negative babies, it is a contribution from the society, from the facility, from the spouse. We notice a lot of gender-based violence, where even there's a couple, both of them are positive. The man does not want you to openly seek for support that should be helping you have a negative baby. So again, it is your husband who is discriminating against you in the household, or your mother-in-law, or your brothers and sisters, and making it hard for you to get an HIV negative baby, yet it is possible. But also we see that once you are disabled from doing what you should be doing, then transmission to a negative partner is increased. When you make it very difficult for people living with HIV to access care, suppress a viral load, then you increase the infection rates from mother to child, from discordant couples. That is one person is positive and the other one is negative in this relationship. So we really need to have undetectable viral load in the community. We no longer say in the family. If we have everybody on ARVs, everybody virally suppressed, then we are sure there is no HIV transmission going on.
Interesting. It was important to know those that we face as challenges, particularly reaching to vulnerable populations, such as the youth who are the most vulnerable, and women, and also children. I'm glad that you're also working on that, and that is the voice that really the youth really need from you. But if I can cross to you, Awori, I would love you to, if you don't mind, to share your experience on how this journey has been, in that by that experience, maybe a youth outside there, a child, a woman, or anyone can be helped in this journey.
Thank you very much. Maybe I just didn't get clearly what particular experience you want me to share, but
as a representative of people living with the HIV, maybe in this program someone outside there can be helped in one way or the other by sharing that very experience.
Okay. So working with an organization of young people living with HIV has been one of the most eye-opening experience, because you get to interact with the actual people living with HIV, just like Salome does with other members as well of the network. So you realize that most of the challenges that are faced by people living with HIV are centered around stigma and discrimination in one way or the other. This stigma manifests in different forms, in denial of jobs, in neglect by families, in exposure to harmful practices, and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, we have also realized that young people also have a very pressing challenge of pill burden and pill fatigue. So when you ask me, one of the biggest challenges, I would say those two, because when you're HIV positive, so far the research hasn't been so successful to give us a solution of maybe a cure or a pill that you take for over 6 months and you are not on treatment, though we know that research is happening. So realize that these young people have to be on treatment every day of their life. From the time they are identified, those of them who are born with HIV have to be on treatment since birth, till when God decides that, okay, it's now time for the cure to come through. So you realize that even if you just have a flu or a cold, when you're on treatment, you get tired of the pills, and you sometimes don't even finish the dosage. So imagine someone who has to take these pills. Some of them are taking them every day, morning and evening. Those who are lucky to have good adherence and be eligible for further treatment are taking once a day. But nonetheless, young people feel really that this is one of the major challenges of having to take this medicine every day. And then the other challenge has always been availability of other services that are needed. Most times when you're looking at programming for people living with HIV, most of the attention goes to availability of ARVs, which, as well as Salome has indicated, sometimes we are faced with stockouts, whereby you go to a facility and you're given medicine for, say, a week or two, because they have to cater for others who are coming through as well. There are also other services that are always required by the young people. Some of these young people have been orphaned by HIV. We were really happy in the times where there were OVC programs in some of the organizations that were supporting orphans and vulnerable children as a result of HIV. But you realize that due to funding, some of these programs were forced to close, and now children who are orphaned by HIV, it reflects even in their education. Some of them are not in position to achieve good education, and this at the end of the day affects their ability to compete in the job market, because without education, we know that there are other avenues, but still without support, these are also hard to achieve. So without education, their ability to compete in the job market is hard, and that in turn affects their economic status. They're not in position to afford the basic needs that they need as young people living with HIV. They're not even in position to live a quality life as one would desire. So the other issue has always been around, and this is very major amongst young girls who are living with HIV, that's dating with HIV. So most of them find it hard to find partners. You know, the heart wants what it wants. It does not choose another HIV positive person by default. It's only sometimes that it happens, but sometimes you might find that the person you like is HIV negative. So you realize that when they start to date, the moment they disclose their status, and this again comes back to discrimination and stigma, they are always left by their partners. So what they resort to is actually to keep it a secret. And these are some of the results that come out as a result of stigma and discrimination. When there is no disclosure, we are fueling a ground where there is a lot more of transmission of HIV, because I'm not open about my status. I'll not be able to take my treatment in time, because when I'm with my boyfriend, I don't want them to see me taking my medication. And at the end of that day, just like Dr. Dan mentioned, if my virus is not suppressed, that means I'm going to transmit the same to my partner. So all those come back to us and the desire or the need for us to address the major challenge of stigma and discrimination. And I think that's where the importance of the Candlelight Day comes in. Thank you.
Daniel, there are ways that we can work hand in hand to make sure that this stigma, which we call it a very bad device, which is watering down all our efforts and all our efforts, to make sure that at least we help those people that have HIV to come to light, to come bold, to be okay, to live a happy life.
Thank you.
They get out of that discrimination. And
yeah, thank you so much. As the HIV response led by government, efforts have been put in place to address the challenge of stigma, which, as I said, if we do not address boldly, stands in our way of attaining the goal of ending AIDS. We end AIDS as a public health threat. It's no longer a key issue. We move resources to other development agendas. It can easily be done. We have come up with various ways. One of them is that we have developed an anti-stigma HIV/AIDS policy, an anti-HIV/AIDS stigma policy. So there is a national policy that should state the government position and how we should behave regarding or what we shouldn't do regarding discriminating and stigmatizing people we think are affected or are infected, are living with HIV. So that stigma policy, essentially, it's, when you look at it, it categorically recognizes that stigma, the foundation of stigma, is ignorance. Some of the people who stand up, for example, a reverend standing in church and using examples that stigmatize people living with HIV, may be doing it ignorantly. So we notice that the foundation of stigma is lack of accurate information, and we aim to educate our people about giving them accurate information. Once you have accurate information on how HIV is transmitted, for example, who contracts HIV? I can give you an example. Between 1981, when the HIV, when AIDS was first discovered, until like 1990, there was no HIV testing services in Uganda. So between 1980 and until 1990, people were receiving blood transfusion. So what do you think happened to them? Between 1980 and 1990, people were getting married. We had no way of knowing who had HIV, who didn't have HIV. People did not do wrong, did not do anything. So stigma is founded in a lack of information, but this also is founded on something inherent about human beings, that we are prejudicial. You're always looking for a way of claiming you're better than others, which is something that we can speak to, and it involves participation of all of us. We shall not leave it to people living with HIV. We shall not leave it to the Uganda AIDS Commission. Just like how we started in the HIV fight, for us to start realizing reversal in the epidemic. The president himself got off and drove around the country thinking about HIV and AIDS. The ministers, the members of parliament, the decentralized leaders, these are the local council leaders, the church leaders, everybody stood up and educated people against HIV. Even before we had the ARVs, we saw the burden of HIV starting to reduce. The prevalence was coming down. So for us to end stigma, we want all our leaders, the church leaders, the political leaders, the technical leaders, to stand up again, civil society leaders, and shout at stigma. Because we shouted at HIV, we started making gains and reversing the epidemic. If we don't condemn stigma in strong terms, it is clearly standing in our way. It is founded on misinformation or lack of information. So as Uganda AIDS Commission and the whole HIV response, we are disseminating the policy, we are disseminating information, but we cannot reach far. We want the media to join hands with us, because you magnify our reach so that everybody knows across the country, gets enough information to not be stigmatizing others, but also gets enough information to know that stigma is wrong, to know what stigma looks like, the pain it causes people, children of people, of adults living with HIV, or children living with HIV, or even adults living with HIV. So that together as a community, we work together to kill this evil, because if we don't stamp it out, all of us, one day its consequences will come on us. I've said, if we are continue stigmatizing people, they don't take their medication well, and they continue transmitting. They may not do it deliberately, but that HIV in the long run will come around to your uncle, to you, to your neighbor. So we need to work together, make it a commitment, make it a pact that we are going to work together as Ugandans to kill stigma. It stands in our way of easily ending the AIDS epidemic as a public health threat. Let's work together to end AIDS. Let's kill stigma.
Daniel, you mentioned in your introduction that 2030 might be very far for us to end AIDS. Even it is possible to end it today or even next hours. What has it? Why is it taking us long to end this? As you can see, we have new infections, 52,000 new infections. 2 years, maybe it could have increased to 60 or 70,000 new infections. What do you think has delayed this kind of prevention?
There are several factors that still stand in our way, which, as I believe, if we could work together and remove these factors, we can easily attain the end of the epidemic, not even waiting for 2030. There is, in science, there was a famous man called, was it Archimedes, said, if you give me a river long enough, I can single-handedly move the earth. So it's something about it. Those who studied science may know it very well. So if you give me, number one, you end stigma. No more discrimination, no shaming people living with HIV. That the person living with HIV can freely pick up her tin of ARV, take her medication when the time comes, just like the person with hypertension does, without feeling ashamed. Just like a person with diabetes does. If you can give me that, I would guarantee that most of our people will attain virus suppression. If you can stop shaming the people who test for HIV, just like you don't shame somebody who tests for diabetes, just like you don't shame somebody who tests for hypertension, then that means that all our people, because for HIV testing, it's better than diabetes. We have moved the HIV test kit to the nearest health center. We have even launched yesterday an HIV test that shall be done from the homes. Self-testing in homes. We shall be distributing test kits. You take to your sister back home, they test from their home. So we can easily identify everybody who has HIV and encourage them to come for treatment. That's one way. Stigma dies. The second one that stands in our way is gender-based violence. Gender, especially affecting women. So many women, including men, the significant violence against men from the demographic health survey. So many men and women are fearing to test because they fear the wrath of their partner. Salome talked about family. Once you test positive, I have one of the friends here who is a young woman living with HIV. She was married, but once she shared with the extended family of her husband that she's actually living positively. Yet she was taking her ARVs well. She was undetectable. She has had an HIV negative baby. She had not transmitted her HIV to her husband, but still the family connived and made her give up her marriage. So there's gender-based violence that makes people fear to go for HIV testing because they fear the repercussions. There's gender-based violence that stops people from taking prevention measures that we have. We have very good prevention measures. Some of them, for example, we have what we call pre-exposure prophylaxis. It requires you to take ARV every day. If you consider your spouse be putting you at risk, if you came to hospital and you told us that my husband is always infecting me with gonorrhea, it is only a matter of how soon will he infect you with other diseases, sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. We would give you medication to make sure you never contract HIV. Even him, if he came, we would give him medication to make sure he never contracts HIV. But because of gender-based violence, he cannot come for that medication because once he goes home, then he will be put at gunpoint by the spouse. So if we could end gender-based violence in all its forms, and allowed people, it would free up people to access the prevention methods that we have. A woman would be able to insist and tell the husband, use a condom, because yesterday you were having pain when you are urinating, which is a sign of gonorrhea, until we test for HIV and confirm you don't have HIV. A woman would freely come for pre-exposure prophylaxis. A woman would go for antenatal freely, test blood without really the fear. A woman who tests HIV positive would freely disclose her spouse, and they plan on how to make sure they don't transmit HIV between each other. So if we end gender-based violence, we shall move closer. I think that aside, I am glad to report that for us as government, we can say that we have enough. Solomon earlier talked about stockouts of ARVs. Those are small issues but we have enough tools for HIV prevention to meet the need of our people. We have enough condoms. We see that the behaviors of the people are going back to the days when there was no HIV. The number of people who are engaging in casual sex, husbands, married people, women, married wives, who are abandoning, leaving their marital bed, going to look for sexual partners outside marriage, the number keeps increasing. So what is challenging is that the number of those who engage in those extramarital affairs, who remember to use condoms, for example, does not increase. It remains, actually keeps reducing below 10%. So you can imagine the number of men who can easily give up their marital bed to go and look for a sexual partner outside marriage is close to 50%. But of all the men who can cheat on their spouses, only around 10% remember to use a condom. So which is a problem? It's a problem that if we go back to educating our community has gotten complacent either they have gotten fatigue from prevention. But if we can decide to create a movement and say, let's give ourselves 5 years, everybody who is going to cheat, I cannot stop you from cheating on your spouses. That one I leave it to reverence. Everybody who's going to cheat for the next 3 years can use a condom. Everybody stop stigmatizing. Stop stigmatizing your spouses. Let everybody be here to start on treatment. I think we'll move closer to ending the epidemic sooner than waiting until 2030, because we have what it takes in form of tools, in form of medications, including condoms, to make sure we get closer to ending the epidemic sooner. Maybe I must also add, among the prevention tools, we recently analyzed our data to identify which people are contracting HIV now most. Of course, we still have the young women, where Ruth comes from, between the age of 15 and let's say up to 29, they still take number 1 position. But among men, we notice that men who are uncircumcised, they take the lion's share of new HIV infections among men. So among men, we see that men who divorced or separated from their spouses, they take number 2 position in the number of new HIV infections. When we look at the men who divorced or separated, who take number 2 position in the number of new HIV infections after young women, we see that the uncircumcised man takes the lion's share, like 90% of all new infections among divorced separated men. So uncircumcised man. We also see that among young men, the unmarried young men between the age of 15 and 29, there is an increase in number of new HIV infections in that age group. But what is interesting is that most of the new HIV infections in that age group are occurring among the uncircumcised young men. So young men between the age of 15 and 24, we see that they contribute like 7.8% of all new HIV infections. Okay. But of those, 7.3% is from uncircumcised young men. So I would want to emphasize that as part of our efforts to end the AIDS epidemic, all men listening in now, if you are not yet circumcised, put religion aside. There are so many circumcised reverends. Put religion aside, go and get circumcision. From our data, circumcision is clearly protective, because we know only 10% who cheat remember to use a condom. So why don't you use circumcision to add on your benefit of not being part of the cycle of continued HIV spread? So I will stop there in the time being.
Interesting. Before I come to you, Salome, let me go to the youth, because they're the majority in this country and the most affected when it comes to HIV and AIDS. You come from a network. I'm talking to you, Wari. What role do peer support networks play in the lives of those young people in Uganda, especially those that are living with HIV? And how can we strengthen these networks to provide better support?
Thank you very much. So the networks and peer support organizations, I think those are two different things, but they play they play a major role in supporting young people living with HIV. First and foremost, it's one of the things that they do is providing psychosocial support for the young people living with HIV. We know that coping with HIV is not an easy thing, like I mentioned earlier. So there is need for you to be able to congregate with some people that are of your similar HIV status, to reaffirm yourself that you are not alone and reinstill that hope in the young person. Then secondly, we do organizations and peer support organizations do advocacy both at national level and at community level for the issues that are affecting young people living with HIV. For example, when COVID-19 came through, it was through the networks of young people that we realized that actually young people who are on treatment were not in position to move to the health facilities, and that's how we went ahead to lobby for those who are in position to deliver medications to be awarded, to be given with the clearance or permissions to move even on motorcycles as they do these deliveries, and that helped in a way to cope up with the situation at hand then. Then the other issue that that is always handled with the support networks is addressing stigma and discrimination. In these organizations, in the support networks, we always ensure that we address the different myths and misconceptions that fuel stigma and discrimination by gathering public support for the young people, but also through awareness creation to ensure that the people actually have the right information. If you realize that stigma and discrimination is usually fueled by ignorance, someone thinking that they can get HIV by being associated with someone who is HIV positive, someone thinking that who is HIV positive, they cannot live, and so they are neglected. So we address those kind of ignorances and through awareness creation to ensure that the people actually are in position to support the young people living with HIV. But we do not stop there. Organizations also work hard to ensure that they are part and parcel of the development of programs and projects that influence the lives of young people living with HIV. It's through the networks and organizations that you know what is the issue that is happening in Ginger. If I were to design a program today and it's targeting Ginger, what can I do best to ensure that the program is effective but is also acceptable by the young people in the community? And then the other thing that also organizations do is ensuring that they bring the services closer to the young people. You realize that when we work with the peer supporters, sometimes one is not in position to go to a health facility because of one reason or the other. It's through the organizations and the peer supporters that we work with at the health facilities that these medications are either delivered to the young person or are withdrawn from the pharmacy and kept till when a young person is in position to pick them. Of course, this is only done when the client is eligible for that kind of arrangement. But also one thing that we need to realize is that these organizations do not work in isolations. They act as the bridge, and these peer support networks work as a bridge between the young people, the community of the young people living with HIV in the country, and those other stakeholders that are relevant. For example, UNIPA works directly with USC, which is a government entity that is tasked with coordination, like Dr. Dan mentioned. So we act as a bridge to ensure that we bring the issues and the experiences of young people living with HIV from the communities to the other levels where everyone is not in position to reach. Okay. Basically, that's in brief what those peer support networks help with. But also these are go-to organizations or contacts. For example, if you're faced with an urgent matter, these are people that you can reach out to. We have been able to address issues of stigma and discrimination even before the Equal Opportunities Commission. So we are in position to advocate and ensure that young people living with HIV live positive and productive lives.
I have opened my lines, our dear listener, in case you want to be part of the conversation or raise any concern or question or any perspective in this program. 776-511-426 is the number you can call right now and share your opinions. As I receive calls, I will put this to you, Salome. Most affected are women with 6.5%, almost double to that of men, which is 3.6%. My question that I would love to put to you, how can we empower women who are the most affected to become advocates of HIV and AIDS awareness, prevention, and stigmatization within our Ugandan communities? As you think about that, receiving the callers. You're live and clear on UBC Ground Zero.
I'm on a great morning to you and all the panelists.
A very great morning, my brother.
Yes, Juma here, Busega.
Okay.
When we go to the industries which are manufacturing condoms, they do manufacture the condom for both male and female. When you go to the community, you calculate the percentage of men who at least are trying to use condom for the protection of HIV/AIDS, and compare it to the one of females who are totally refused to use the female condoms. What comes to your mind if you're a manufacturer of such? Two, here at Busega, we have swampy areas where sometimes we rear our animals. The number of condoms we find at the sewage line there, which are not open, very much than the one which are used. Again, if you're a manufacturer or you're a government who are injecting money and you are seeing what you have manufactured for a purpose and has not been used, what goes to your mind? Are we not wasting resources, the money which are put for those people to manufacture the condoms?
Okay.
I think we are misusing money. I add number 3. Sometimes medical personnel, they take people who are HIV positive. They only fall sick on only AIDS. Without knowing these people, sometimes they suffer from flu. Also, they need to take the medicine for flu. Sometimes they suffer from different diseases, which is not related to HIV. But now, theft in the hospital, because a thief will carry what they want to take. They don't know this is ARV. They don't know this one is Panadol. In that way, this HIV person,
Okay.
a patient,
As you conclude, sir.
who deserve to be handled with the care.
Okay.
Find that the medical staffs who are involved in theft, embezzlement, the security officer at the gate, what are their mandates? The administrators within the hospitals, how do they run their business in terms of security? For securing the medicines and the accountability. For me,
Last
without
one on
fear
that,
of
sir.
favor. Yeah, summary, I would say theft by the medical, conniving with the security officers at the gate, have to be enlightened a bit.
Okay.
Because these are the people who are letting our country down. I thank you.
Most welcome, Juma, and
Welcome.
thank you for those concerns. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call and share your perspective in this edition of UBC Ground Zero. Ground Zero?
Good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm Michael calling from Aflebion.
All right.
My concern is, yes, living with HIV and swallowing drugs, and how can I be assured that the drugs do not affect my liver or any part of my stomach? Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you, Michael, and greetings to the people of Kabela Biong. 776-511-426 is the number you can call and reach to us. Share any concern to be addressed by my guest in the studios. We are on 5 radio stations and also streaming live on YouTube. You just put UBC and radio or UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of the conversation. You're live on UBC Ground Zero.
Ground Zero, good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Justus in Kampala.
Justus, thank you.
Thank you for addressing such a sensitive issue.
You're welcome, sir.
I want to talk about morality because these are issues of morality.
Mm.
And you know very well this is really an integral part of a human being, but it has its centers of improvement, correction, and this is more of religious and culture. Can we find a way of integrating the prevention, destigmatization, and then awareness to religious institutions and cultural institutions, and we do it in a way that we have a feedback process that is sustainable, and then those people, they have their own structures. Can we find a way of having the efforts accepted and integrated in the structures of churches, mosques, and cultural institutions, and then we find a way of asking them progress, so that we create, even if it is WhatsApp and there is a report, there is this, because I mean, a human person makes a decision by himself.
Okay.
There are those people who make a decision to die. So we need to help people.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Justice. Oh, UBC Ground Zero.
Good morning.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Okay, this is Salma Minpal.
Salome Palsa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I may have like 1 to 2 for them to enlighten me on. I want them just to, how can they encourage these younger children the ones who are living with HIV, to make sure that they will be able to take their tablets every day. And another thing is, how can they tell the people who are living with HIV/AIDS at least to keep on? It's like when I'm sick of HIV, there is no use of me spreading for the whole world. So how are they advising people at least to try to keep on themselves, just to distance from someone who is not affected of HIV?
Thank you. Thank you, Salome. Okay, if I can as well use these minutes to read some of the messages. I am Kennedy from Lila. I lost 12 relatives to AIDS, so I would love to be part of the candlelight, and I pay respect to my loved one whom I lost. Thank you for the efforts. Indeed, candlelight is very important, especially when it comes to this fight. I am Justin, I think. I'm Justin, and I'm taking ARVs because I tested and I found out that I was positive, but it has taken me some time to convince my husband to go for a test. I don't know how best I can talk to him to understand and go for tests. All right. UBC Ground Zero. You're live on UBC Ground Zero. You're live on UBC Ground Zero.
Yes, you're talking to OK Vincent from Agwechi.
Your name again?
OK Vincent from Agwechi. Agwechi is in Erusi sub-county.
Okay.
OK Vincent.
Okay, Vincent.
Yes. Yes, please.
You are live. Your concern, please.
Okay, I would like to put... Yes, just I'm going to talk something brief about the youth. You know, this time we are living around, when you're trying to advise youth that HIV is a disease that can kill. But some youth, they don't believe. They say that if they can compare HIV with the headache. So how can you advise those people?
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, please. This is UBC Ground Zero. We're talking about ending HIV by 2030 and fronting communities at the center of this. And I have a special team of guests in the studios of UBC who are going to be helping us address those concerns. I'm going to start with you, Salome, and to address those concerns coming from the people of Uganda. Starting with my first questions that I put to you, considering those that send in their messages and also those that have been calling and so many others. If time allows, we're going to be, of course, receiving so many calls. Let me put this to you, Salome, quickly. And in this second part, it's a rush hour. We always advise to use a little time if you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your first question is, how do we empower women since many women are turning positive? I think there are so many reasons why women are vulnerable or females are vulnerable, and one of them is poverty. So economic empowerment is helpful when we ensure that communities have resources, and then women are able to access these resources. That decreases their chances of being vulnerable to infection. The other one is prevention, like others have shared. We have PEP, we have PrEP. So these are methods and that we should inform women about and make sure that they're able to access. Of course, knowledge is important. Knowledge is power. Give them enough knowledge so that they can be able to protect themselves. We need to end inequalities. Inequalities, we'll see it coming in different forms. When you see gender-based violence, there's someone who has power over you, and that is a problem. Access to medication, again, this is an issue of inequalities. Those who have money can access more and better care than others. So how do we end this and make sure that everybody can access care? And then we also need to stigmatize. So I believe that when we do all this, then we'll be able to enable women live HIV free. Of course, they ensure they participate in the labor force. They are able to get access to education, and they are able and supported even when they are in already positive, to make sure that there is no transmission through EMTCT and others. In terms of the callers, one of the callers is asking how can he be supported to ensure that his liver is not damaged. I believe this, I suppose that the caller is taking ARVs, and there are periodic tests that are done to make sure that the liver is not destroyed, and the medical workers should be able to give you, should be able to guide you based on your results on what to do. So kindly, if you're attending an art clinic, make sure that when they request for blood tests, you do give the blood tests and other tests, but also you follow up and ask for the results so that a course of action can be taken. The other one, another caller also asked how can we mitigate theft of medicines. So there's many mitigation ways. I believe there are call lines you can report to, though if you suspect that medicines are being stolen, beginning with the police, beginning with the LOC, and this can be followed. One of the callers was advising that we need to be more moral. The caller informed us that it is a moral issue, but again, we always say that HIV is not really a moral issue, because we have children who are born HIV positive, and so I don't know where they fall in the line of morality. We have women who have married virgins and still they turn positive, and we have men in combat who go to defend the country, and because of blood mingling with others, or those who have got accidents contracting. So when you look at HIV from a moral angle, I think you end up missing a lot there. So one is to look at it more from a social issue and not necessarily a morality issue, and then be able to integrate with other spheres that we could make use of. It is good that you noted we have the religious institutions and we have the cultural institutions, and indeed these institutions at times do stigmatize religious leaders. We hear you at times preach, stay away, don't be moral, and then the children who are born positive who are in the church service come back home and ask, where did I become immoral, mommy or daddy? So let us be mindful of what we preach. Of course, we need to preach, but we need not to we need to destigmatize our preaching. Cultural leaders, you have a big constitution, a constituency, which you could take use of and make sure that there's a lot of information going out there on prevention as well as management of HIV. How do we encourage children to take medicines? Again, when children are still young, of course, 0 to 5, it's just encouraging, like you'd encourage your child to eat. Make sure you let them know that this is good for their body, this will keep them healthy, and then when they reach an older age, 8 to 18, of course the questions change. It's very important that we connect and link such children to service providers, because we have what we call youth corners, and these youth corners, they enable children to understand more about HIV and therefore take better care of themselves. How can we?
Thank you.
Okay.
If Daniel could add on, and then I'll come to Awori to Summit.
Okay, I add on several things, of course. The first one is the question which was addressed to Sorome about why is the HIV epidemic disproportionately affecting women. She gave some of the reasons, but we classify them as biological.
As statistics show that they are laboring men.
Yes. So, but I wanted to highlight the prevention gap. When you look at the available tools for HIV prevention, the available tool, which is mainly the condom, is that the man is in charge. I have had conversation with sex workers. They tell you their customers buy them. They get into a hotel. They have condoms in the handbag, but the men don't want to wear the condom. So the woman is at the mercy of the man to use the main HIV prevention tool, which is the condom. But fortunately, that leaves women at a disadvantage. They have very few tools, if any, that are under their control. Even the condom, the female condom that somebody talked about earlier, I think it was Juma. I would want to ask Juma, if they told her that this woman is wearing a condom, your girlfriend go, what would be his reaction? So even women who have attempted to use the female condom have faced a challenge from their would-be partners. So we have come up with a new innovation that we think will bridge this gap, the prevention gap for the woman. A tool that empowers the woman. If you have a very uncooperative husband or spouse or partner who not even allow you to wear a female condom, you can discreetly come into the hospital. We give you an injection once every 2 months, and it protects you from acquiring HIV. Even if you're a sex worker, or even if your husband behaves like puts you at risk all the time. So we believe one of the reasons why more women are affected is that there are no prevention tools. There are available tools we have had for a long time. Women depended on the mercy of men to use them. So if a man is HIV positive or doesn't think he's HIV negative, he has no motivation to use any prevention tool. So, but we are planning on bridging that gap using PrEP, the injectable PrEP, which a woman can access discreetly without violence from their partners. We agree with Juma. There are female condoms and male condoms. Women still face challenges with using their female condom, and it's an area. But I must emphasize that condom use in general is not natural behavior. It's not natural behavior, so it must be promoted. We're having challenges with promoting condom use. It's at policy level, but we shall go ahead to work with our members of parliament, with our policymakers, to know that we need condoms for prevention of HIV and other sexually transmitted infections, for both men and women, for prevention of pregnancy, unintended pregnancy, which is still very high. A significant number of people still give birth to unintended pregnancy. 46% of all mothers who gave birth last year, which they would have waited. So, but we have to normalize the condom. So one of the challenges is that the female condom just came recently. The male condom came in the 1950s. We have been trying to normalize it, to get it accepted. The female condom is a new thing. So there's still so much work for us to promote and normalize use of the female condom, and would want to encourage the key religious leaders, political leaders, to support us, not to sabotage our efforts. Because we see one of the challenges we have in condom use is that key leaders don't give us momentum. They sabotage it. They use it as a bad example, which we think should stop. We recognize the issue of wastage of condom, and we are modifying that to make sure condoms are put in areas where those who need them can access them. Unlike in the past, where we gave condoms to somebody we thought needed them, and some of them, especially women, when they went back home, they had challenges with negotiating use. A woman comes for postnatal care, you say, okay, your husband has infected you with a small problem, take this condom as you take these medications. Tell him to be using these condoms until he also comes for treatment. But many women have a challenge with convincing the spouses to use the condom, and those are the condoms that you find on the dustbin thrown away. But we are coming up with measures to make sure condoms are within the community for easy access for those who need them, to minimize wastage. There are several questions. How can I be sure that drug do not affect the liver? I wanted to assure Michael that we keep on improving our HIV treatment. The HIV treatment we had in 2000 had several side effects, but the treatment we have now is so convenient on an individual. And I would want to assure you, Michael, that we have so many people who have taken medication for quite a long time. I don't think it is your liver which is going to be, you shouldn't worry about your liver, because we have so many people living publicly who have taken medication for more than 30 years. So why are you worried that your liver, really for you, your liver is the one to be singled out? The drugs that had those side effects have been laid off. We have friendly drugs now, easy to take. So if you're really contemplating, don't they, to start treatment, because AIDS itself may kill you before you even think of liver.
Okay. But you also called on the different institutions and politicians and many other stakeholders. But I would love to put this to you. How do you expect the government, NGOs, and international organizations to play in accelerating the progress towards ending AIDS, by 2030 that we have just said?
That's my question. How do I expect? For me, the immediate ask I have to accelerate the goal of ending AIDS is on individuals, me and you and the person listening. Juma told us that
government doesn't have
I
any
will
role.
also come to government. Government, I want to come to government last. You see, the problem is I don't want us to put the responsibility out there. Let's own the responsibility. I want to convince the listeners that the responsibility, the person who is kunafia, who is slowing down progress, it's not government, it's not donors, it is us, it is individuals. There are enough condoms in this country for everybody to be protected from the risk of HIV and unintended pregnancy. But how many of our people?
Okay.
I've already shared with you the statistics. Close 50% of married men will sneak away from their spouses, but only 10% remember to use a condom. So it is up to us. The government is not short of condoms. We have ARVs. We are always testing, going around the community, asking people, getting closer to their homes. There is no HIV, there is no program, health program, that has endeavored to take the service closer to the people, to beg the people. We have gone to the communities to ask people, come and test. We
The
have
last
moved
one
to their
on that,
homes.
if you can use seconds to end on that. Our
Okay.
time is not
So,
on our side.
As I want to say that the government, yes, there is still something for the government to do, but as individuals, we have not maximally utilized the opportunities that the government has managed to put in place. So the main challenge to getting closer to ending the AIDS epidemic in this country, I leave it to us as individuals. Let's stand up and do what we have been taught by the government to do and utilize the services the government has already put in place, so that we play our part as individuals in communities before we ask for government for more.
Interesting. I worry if you have any additions on that, especially on the concerns coming from the callers, but also I would love, now that you are youth and many others, we are talking about technological advancement, I would love to know some of the innovative approaches or technologies that show promise in the fight against HIV and AIDS. The microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be as brief as I can.
Please.
So first and foremost, I would like to go back to the caller who spoke about the liver. One thing, just like Dr. Dan mentioned, the medicines that we have now have few side effects, save if you have a very unhealthy lifestyle. For example, you don't expect to take medicine while you're taking a lot of alcohol and you expect your liver to be okay. So let's also try to be as responsible as we can as people on treatment to ensure that we do not, again, burden the liver with a lot of things. And then the other aspect was around young people who are on treatment. There is one thing I know about treatment is that it's a personal initiative. One has to appreciate the importance of the medicine themselves before they can adhere to it religiously. So we need to support the young people through treatment literacy programs that help them understand why they are taking these medications and why they need to continue being on these medications, and what could happen if they went off this treatment, to be able to appreciate it and to take it religiously, like one of us called and requested. And then the other aspect was around HIV prevention. I think one of the major roles that we have as people living with HIV is to ensure that no one else contracts the virus from us. So it's our role to ensure that we take our treatment very well, to ensure that we are suppressed and do not transfer the virus to anyone else. So back to the question of advancement in technology and other innovations that have been made to contribute to the response, I cannot go without speaking of one of the young persons who went ahead to innovate a tool, a tin it's a medication tin that you can help to carry in your medicine discreetly. So one of the challenges that young people faced initially was the issue of medicines being when it's shaking a lot, and also the fact that it's always labeled and easily identifiable by people, which was causing them stigma. So one of the young people, who is our ambassador, Miss Hajara Asim, went ahead to introduce the Easy Peasy pill box that is really stylish, in which one can carry their medications. And even if you found it in someone's bag, it's hard to tell that this is actually carrying ARVs, or when you just see the pills, it's hard to tell that it's actually ARVs in those particular tins. And then the other technologies, the other innovations that have been made are around, for example, the times that we're using an application that was called the Unipa app, that was used to link the young people to service providers to access guidance and counseling online, but also to request for service delivery then. So this was an application that was used to deliver ARVs and other SRHR commodities on the request of the young people as well. We also managed to run a USSD code, because we realized that not everyone was in position to have a smartphone or even have internet connectivity at all times. So we used a USSD code that you could dial in and get information about HIV, or even the nearest health center that you can go to get the services. There are also other applications, for example, the Centers for Her application, that is a response application for GBV survivors, and this particularly helps one to access the next center for services. For example, it has different centers like the health facilities, the police stations, the courts, the recreation centers. So in a way that when you're a survivor of GBV, you can easily understand on this particular application, according to where I am, where can I go for this particular service, and who can I contact in this particular center to be able to get the service. And then there are also other applications. For example, there is a More Smiles app that has been developed by another organization called Miles of Smiles Foundation, and this particular application is for people living with HIV to interact with health workers, but also it's an application where one can set up a reminder for their treatment. So this one actually helps one to improve their adherence, because you can easily set up your appointment dates in there. You can keep track of your medication, how much you have, and how much when you're supposed to go back to the health facility. You can easily follow. You can also get reminders for when your treatment is due, or when you're supposed to be taking your medication. And it's made in a way that it's also it protects your privacy. It does not come up with a pop-up of "Hi Ruth, it's time for your ARVs." It depends on the way you set it, on what kind of notification you would love to receive, and what kind of hint words you would require to be able to remember that it's actually time for your medication. So, and the other thing is always around awareness creation on social media. There have been a lot of spaces that are conducted by like-minded organizations and UNIPA as well, to ensure that the young people have information and the relevant guidance that they need to live positively, and also contribute to the HIV response. In brief, that's it. Thank you.
EBC Ground Zero.
I've not had my answer about the number of waste of unused condom. Too much flooding, roadside, everywhere you go to swamps you find. What are the mechanisms?
I think Daniel did answer that.
I didn't have it.
Okay. UBC Ground Zero, we are talking about ending HIV, ending AIDS by 2030. Maybe I will give you time, Daniel, to react on that about wastage to answer Juma's question. But going straight to you, Salome, we have made the significant progress in the fight against HIV and AIDS that I recommend. But I also learned that we have past successes and failures. What lessons have we learned from these past successes and failures in the HIV/AIDS response, and how can we apply these lessons to achieve our goals by 2030 that we have set? Salome.
Okay, thank you so much. I think each success maybe has come with a failure, but I hope not. One of it was EMTCT, elimination of mother-to-child transmission. We were really praised all over the world for being champions and doing so well. But at the moment, I think from all of us, you've heard that we're having new infections coming in from unborn babies. So what is it that we did that time? We did sensitize a lot, and we provided the tools that were needed, but also communities. I think what we should look at is we are so much on the government gives this, the government does that. But what are we doing with the community? So a community should be educated, a community should be supported, and the community should be able to take on the services. So that is one thing that we should do well. Leadership in the response. HIV is one of these diseases that we need to see leadership. We are happy that we've seen the president, we've seen the first lady champion some of these causes, but we need to see the religious leaders and the traditional leaders championing the cause, mobilizing for the resources, working with their communities and creating programs that really do address these issues. We want to see schools, institutions of learning, and all the other institutions destigmatizing. We have talked about stigma that is institutionalized in policy. We have the HIV Act, for example. So these are the things we want to see removed, repealed, so that we do not have institutionalized stigma and discrimination from a policy level. From the communities, by the way, one thing I really want to share is that it is no one's responsibility to ensure you're HIV negative. It is your own responsibility. So let's stop saying people don't infect others, but why are people getting? No. As an individual, you are not a goat, you're not a chicken, you know there are condoms, there is a prevention. You have so many tools. So take charge of your health. When someone approaches you, be free to know their status, go for a check with them, enroll into a prevention method. If the person is positive and you still want to continue in a sexual relationship with that person, then get into a treatment so that you are able to prevent yourself from accessing, from contracting this disease, so that we move away from, but don't give people HIV. No. It is your responsibility as a human being to make sure that anything that is bad for you, you work towards preventing yourself from acquiring it. So that is very important. So to me, for me, I think our government should put resources. We are seeing donors, we always call it donor fatigue. They are moving to climate change, they are moving to other spaces, and we cannot continue saying put money here, no. It is the citizens are Ugandan citizens. We are always having shortage, and actually our epidemic at the moment is almost 90% plus funded. So we need now government to take full charge, because even when we eliminate acquisition of HIV, there will be those who will be still living positively and will require treatment. So we need the government to be center staged here in terms of resources and in terms of continuing with innovations that support prevention and as we say, close the tap of new infections, but properly manage those that are currently positive, so that we have a productive workforce and we have people leading very meaningful and fulfilling lives.
Interesting. Thank you, Sarame. I'll put this to you, Dr. Daniel. We're looking at ahead. By 2030 is not that very far, but you also put it right that we can end AIDS today. But looking ahead, what are the most pressing priorities and opportunities for accelerating progress in the fight against HIV and AIDS? And I will give some minutes to read some comments, and then we shall go into our parting shots.
So thank you. I think if I would say the most pressing need, the first one is that we at policy level, we know that we have evaluated all the tools we have in the country. We believe that we can end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. But the communities are not mobilized. Long ago, when we had campaigns to end measles, to end polio, everybody knew that they needed to take their child for immunization as part of the whole effort to end measles or to end polio. Right now, the communities are not well mobilized. Who mobilize the communities? It is our religious leaders, it is our political leaders. So the first ask is let the political leaders, because if you look at the people in the response, the Uganda AIDS Commission has like 50 staff. Some of them are drivers. We cannot move village to village. We need an army. The army that started the reverse of this epidemic was led by General Museveni. in the 1980s, 90s, together with his other political leaders and the religious leaders. We want the religious leaders, the political leaders, to get back to work, to mobilize for us the communities, so that we move towards the end of AIDS by 2030. The second one, of course, is that we need resources. As much as I said, we may not ask for resources right now because the resources which are there, but there are some areas which are clear gaps. I talked about the problem of young women, that they see the highest number of new HIV infections. Would want to see programs targeting young women scaled up almost across the country. But right now we have fewer resources that we can only cover a few districts. So would want additional resources as planners to bring certain services to scale. But I maintain my statement that some programs like condom program, like circumcision program, you can get circumcised right now. There's no shortage of knives or shortage of condoms. So the third area that I would want us really to emphasize is that we must commit as a country to end stigma. Stigma is standing in our way, and stigma requires, as part of mobilization of educating, we have seen that there is a new generation of people. It was mentioned by one of the callers. For us, when we were young, we saw the pain caused by HIV infection. We saw somebody who had AIDS. It was painful, it was concerning, and we never want to see it again. So young people, most of our young people have not had this. Most of our young people did not get educated about condom use. For us, when we were young, because of the pain of seeing people living with AIDS, everybody educated us about condoms. I remember Miriam Matembe coming with demonstrations of condom use. You cannot get a politician now doing that right now. But we have a new whole generation of young people who are sexually active. We need to get back to the basics and educate these young people what needs to be done. Even show them some of the old films of what it would be like if you don't take a medication. But I want to conclude with this one, is that HIV treatment is expensive. It takes so much money to keep one person on HIV treatment. And as a country, we cannot say we can put every Ugandan on treatment. So I would want to call upon the young people. Somebody talked about them, that they don't fear. They take HIV like headache, which I think is it's because they are young. But I would want to call upon them. HIV treatment is not food. It's very difficult to have the discipline of taking medication every day. Okay. But we don't have enough money to put every Ugandan on treatment. We would want to encourage our people to emphasize prevention.
Interesting.
Let the men get circumcised. It has nothing to do with religion. Let the men who cheat on their spouses remember to use a condom.
If you can allow me read some of the concerns as well. Someone Kwaringa put this to you. I would love to ask someone from Uganda AIDS Commission. We last time heard of injectable ARVs. What happened up to now? We have not been updated about that. And also someone says, why should we remember those that we have lost to AIDS? Is it not bringing back that pain and fresh memories? Yes, if we can answer those two, and then I will go to Awori for the final remarks. Daniel?
I think I will answer one, and I will leave the second one to my sister here, Salome. Injectable ARV, it is not treatment. I must emphasize the injectable ARV that I promised you, I am the one who promised this, is for pre-exposure prophylaxis. People who are at high risk of contracting HIV, if they come and we give them an injection every 2 months, that special injection called pre-exposure prophylaxis, they don't contract HIV, even if they are people who are sex workers. That injection is coming in the country. We have placed our orders. We have started with a few orders to see how people use it and accept it. If people don't fear the injection, once every 2 months, we shall order for more.
Maybe
but we believe by the end of June, by early July, August, we shall start giving people who need that service.
Shedding more light on that is for prevention purposes.
It is for prevention,
not those
for
who
people
have the virus already.
Yes. Now, there is research going on to make that injection available for people who have the virus for treatment. but that research is still in early stages.
Thank you.
But what we have now is for prevention. For people who are HIV negative, if they take that injection, they don't contract the HIV, even if they are people who sell sex.
Your parting shots and final comments. I may not get time to get back to you.
So thank you, colleagues, for listening. My request is that let's mobilize ourselves as individuals. What are you going to contribute as an individual to this national movement to end AIDS by 2030? If you are not circumcised as a man, circumcise. If you're a person who is sexually active and the person before you is not your HIV negative partner, remember to use a condom. Let's do whatever we can do as individuals. Let's not stigmatize anybody because we don't know, so that we contribute to the national movement of ending AIDS by 2030, which if everybody cooperates, we can even do much earlier.
Thank you. Awoli, your parting shots as would put this as well to you. Is ABC strategy still effective, or it is the old story that we have lost?
Thank you very much. That's a tricky question. But I can say that the ABC strategy is still working. But we should also know that it's not working for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You may find that some people, abstinence is the key to go, and we really applaud them. And then you'll find that for the others, the condom is the way to go, and we still also respect their decisions. And you may find that those who are in relationships, the being faithful is also working for them. But just like Dr. Dan mentioned, that's still up to discussion, because he mentioned about partners that are cheating on their colleagues, on their partners as well. So it's still up for discussion. It's effective to those that still uphold those values, but also to those that do not stand by the same values. There are other options of contributing to the response that we have ably discussed here. So as a parting shot from my end, I would like to call upon the different stakeholders. We all have different roles to play. I'm very happy that today we are here at UBC, and I know that the media has a really great role. You have a great reach. I can't believe I'm in Kampala and I was listening to people from Kaperebyong. I was listening to people from Lira. I was listening to people from Napak. So if we can utilize these platforms to continuously create awareness and support the people to understand the HIV cascade and also what they can do, what their role is, I think that would be a great milestone. And then to the religious leaders, religious and cultural leaders, one thing that is really important is for us to ensure that we do not fuel stigma and discrimination in our respective communities, because we hold a lot of power. A lot of time people say that Uganda is a faith country, so we really believe so much in what our religious and cultural leaders tell us. So if at all we spread hate and stigma, that's what we shall be living within. And finally, to the young people living with HIV, I believe this is our role. This is our fight to fight. When you are exposed to stigma and discrimination, it's your role to challenge it. And that's why I'm very happy with the Y Plus ambassadors who choose to come out and disclose their status as a way of trying to support their colleagues to create an environment that is safe for everyone.
Okay.
So in conclusion, we all have a role to play, and if we do that, just like Dan, even 2030 could be far for the end of AIDS as a public health threat. Thank you.
Most welcome, Salome Atim. Call the people of Uganda to embrace the candle light and also come to, is it Hoima?
Yes.
Parting shots as you call the people to come and join you on this cause.
Friends, someone actually asked, why do we celebrate? We celebrate life.
You're not bringing those fresh memories back to them and that pain?
No. If you have a mother, if you have a brother, if you have a sister who has passed on, many of us, I know, we still get a day where we celebrate their lives. We celebrate the contributions they made. We celebrate what they have done. But also we mark, because HIV is painful, but also it's an actual threat to very many different aspects. So it is a day we should drum support for all of us to remember that HIV is still with us, and we all need to do something to contribute towards ending this as a public health threat. So I will call still upon everybody to make sure that we all make that contribution we can make. The religious leaders, the cultural leaders, and all leaders in all your different capacities, kindly play your role. Government and development partners who fund the epidemic, we are very grateful, and kindly remember to continuously support, because the moment we fall short, we will realize that challenges start to emerge, and I think we've seen this in this epidemic.
Interesting. You have called the people to come to Hoima?
Yes, kindly come to Hoima, Boma grounds, and come celebrate with us. Come
on 17th.
17th. And come and mark with us the candlelight. We are all going to mark lives, celebrate lives, but also to build more strategies and empower ourselves on how we move the remaining journey to 2030 so that we can eliminate HIV as a public health threat. So kindly come to Hoima, come in large numbers. We've been told that the hotels are ready for us, and the preparations have been done. So please do come to celebrate candlelight.
This brings us to the end of our discussion. I want to thank my dear guests that made it a point to come through and educate and inspire the people of Uganda on this edition. Daniel Byamukama, the head of National HIV Preventions coming from Uganda AIDS Commission. Thank you for being part of us today. Tim Sarome is the Vice Chairperson, National Forum of People Living with HIV in Uganda. Thank you for making time to come through. And Ruth Awori is the Executive Director, Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV/AIDS. And I can't also forget those who called in this program and participated: Michael Juma, Justice Salome, Vincent, and many others that called in, and those also that sent in your messages, Ben and many others. Keep it UBC, many programs coming on your radios, on Voice of Bundubujo, on Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda, on Western Nile Radio in Arua, on Magic 100 FM in Kampala, and UBC Radio. George Ngop is coming on the journey. Keep it UBC, make sure you come through on 17th, especially those people in Hoima and the surrounding districts. Come and we commemorate this important day, and we commemorate also those that we have lost in this fight. Keep it UBC. Until next time, same stations, same program. For God and my country, I'm Paida Amanoptega. Allow me to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Got a little something that I like to share with you, yeah. It's a little bit dark, a little bit cold, and it's hard to bear. Oh, oh.